I am Priest. I am a loyal member of the church and I've trained vigorously in the art of self-defense. I vanquish vampires wherever they may hide. I also work mornings at the 7-Eleven downtown. I'm well disciplined and will never give up on the task at hand. Which is why I'd be the perfect manager for Bob's Home and Auto Bin! What? No applicable skills? What does a guy gotta do to get a job around here? Come on! So this is my review of Priest, the movie adaptation of the graphic novel. The movie I would say is like a cross between Blade and V for Vendetta, whereas the graphic novel reminds me more of Hellsing, which reminds me more of Carmen Sandiego. And check out its poster, it reminds me of the game Thief. They're both on the outskirts of the city, dark blue tones, hooded in silhouette, and their daggers are drawn. This is gonna be fun! The movie starts out with this brief and graphic explanation of how vampires have been plaguing mankind for centuries, and in retaliation, mankind have commissioned these martial art warrior priests to keep the vampires at bay. Now the scene looks really cool and it certainly piqued my interest. I can't wait to see these guys in action. Soon after the backstory, we see them infiltrating a vampire to kill their but moments after being in the they realize it's our and one of their goes down. Really? You weren't expecting that? You're in the heart of their territory, no it's a They haven't survived for centuries because they let people waltz into their home. Hey, what's going on? I hear No. Yeah, yeah. We're in the face! No. We're in the face. No. After the church disbands the warrior group, we see the main character, who I guess is only called Priest, which is kind of weird because aren't they all priests? Yeah, Priest. This guy's Priest. Well, we're Priest too, right? Yeah, but his name is Priest. Well, what does that make us? I don't know, who gives a shit? Priest just had another dream about the night that he totally up and goes into a confession booth to atone. Then all of a sudden the leader of the church pops onto his screen and they do like this virtual confession. But to everything the priest says, the guy gives him these answers, which I'm sure are imported into every confession booth. So it seems like you could say anything you want and the would be the same. For instance, this is what he said. Father, I'm having the dreams again. Tell me more. They happen the same way each time. Tell me more. I don't know what to do. The devil has many forms. Say 3 Hail Marys. And I'm sure this is what the next person said. Father, a lot of us have been talking and we're not happy with the way you've been running things. Tell me more. We don't think you're really listening to our confessions, and we kind of think you're an asshole. Tell me more. We're planning a rebellion to overthrow you tomorrow after the pie eating contest. The devil has many forms. Say 3 Hail Marys. Seems to me like there's a flaw in the system. So the priest learns that vampires are people who turn out to be related to him, but they live in a wasteland outside the city, so he seeks help from the same tyrannical council that runs every dystopia. Naturally, the head council member says that there's nothing they can do because they chose to live outside the city that protects them. The walls of the city keep the people safe, and no one is allowed to leave. But this priest doesn't listen. He breaks his rosary, becomes a rebel, and a couple guards along the way. Yeah, now it's time to get through those impenetrable walls, right? The guy said nobody's allowed to leave the city. He's probably gonna sneak through some sewer pipes or stow away in a cargo or jump off a... Oh. He just scoots on through the door they left wide open. Okay, impenetrable walls my ass! So after that daring escape, he reaches the house where the attack happens, teams up with a lawman, and finds tracks to what they call a familiar.
He's a familiar. A vampire wannabe. If he's loyal enough, and he proves himself, maybe his master will turn him.
Thanks, Blade. Now I know what a familiar is, but these vampires don't seem like they work well with others, so I'm curious to see what their familiars look like, and this is where it gets kind of confusing. During the scene where they get to the vampire reservation, I noticed people around me saying, "Is he a vampire?" I don't know. Was he a vampire? I don't know. Is that guy a vampire? No! That's the vampire! It's a little strange when the familiars look more like vampires than the vampires do. By the way, this scene where he the vampires with his fancy daggers and throwing stars, this is the best scene with them. Why? Because it's the only scene with them. Most of the movie is just filled with dialogue and trying to explain the convoluted plot. And that would be fine if the movie would just pick up the pace and go somewhere. Which honestly shouldn't be that hard because throughout the entire movie, everyone is going somewhere. All the main characters have some place to be, and when they get there, they gotta go somewhere else. The whole movie's a cat and mouse game to try and save this girl who was kidnapped. Yeah, they let you know right away what this movie's all about. So they're trying to catch up to this guy who looks nothing like the rest of the vampires. He looks like Hamilton Rourke from the Damnation games. He's all dark and brooding, and he always has his hat tipped down, which also seemed to confuse a couple people. And I have to admit, I was a little confused too. I saw him walk in front of a mirror to out and you can clearly see a reflection. Okay, so he's not a vampire. He's the main vampire! You have to throw out all preconceived notions about vampires before you watch this movie. Now back at the city, Chancellor Palpatine calls in the rest of the remaining priests to tell them that one of their brothers has defied the church by leaving the city and he wants them to go find him and kill him, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Your brother has dishonored the church by leaving the protection of the city. So I want you to leave the protection of the city to kill him. Now call me crazy, but I don't think this guy runs a tight ship. Despite that, we finally get to see all the priests go into battle, right? I mean, they flaunted them around the beginning of the movie, and now they're getting the band back together. Not only that, we get to see them the main vampire? This has gotta be intense. They even got the opera music in the trailers. This is gonna be a great battle. No! No such thing happens. 3 priests get sent out, 1 at the blink of an eye, and the other 2 off camera? What? The whole time, we're told how badass these guys are. Yeah, you don't wanna with them, they'll rip your head off. No, we deserve more than that. The priests deserve more than that. So the last remaining one joins forces with priests and they try to stop a train full of vampires that Black Hat really? That Black Hat is driving straight into the city. Now stuff is going down. The lawman's trying to Princess Peach, the priestess is trying to the train, and the priest is trying to Black Hat. That's right, trying. He keeps getting his kicked and he's not landing any hits with his daggers, so Black Hat gives him the boot. But the priestess gives him this that she's been hanging on to forever that's supposed to help him in the fight. Alright, this has real powers or something. He can't that guy on his own. His daggers are useless. This has to be the power of God in this right? No! It's just another dagger, like all his other daggers, only this one's a but it does the trick, because he takes down Black Hat, the priestess the train, and priest goes back to the Ministry of Magic to tell them that vampires still end of movie. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I wanted to see the penetrate the There's usually that cliche where the protagonist the antagonist and loses, but comes back in a later scene to him. We don't get that here. When the end credits started to roll, it was kind of a surprise for me. I thought, that's it? Maybe it's because I'm not familiar with the graphic novel, or maybe it's because they plan on making a sequel, but I felt that a lot was left out, that a lot went unfinished, and they still had a lot of explaining to do, which is astounding because it felt like more than half of the movie was exposition. I don't think the movie was bad. The scenes it had were really cool, some of the characters were interesting, and it had me interested enough to want to know what was going to happen next. But that's my problem. Am I supposed to want to know what happens next, or did it all already happen? I guess only time will tell.